join our workshop, please make sure to invite them to this workshop, which is for everyone. This workshop is for everyone so that everyone can, have the knowledge that we're going to share today. So, so right now I'm actually accompanied by really special people here in our organization. So I'm Christian De Jesus, and I'm the Director of Education Initiatives with Unidos Now. My colleague Jamir Crespo, the Education Coordinator Initiatives, and also we have Lucero Guzman, which is the Special Projects Coordinator. And we also have Lisbeth Oskubilka, which is the Director of Family Engagement. They are joining us here for this amazing College 101 community workshop. We also have Carla Lopez, which will help us with interpretation in the Spanish language. So knowing about the interpretation, this will be a great time to let you know that we do have Spanish interpretation available. Okay, so if you are looking to get Spanish interpretation, make sure that you click more on the lower right or upper right hand corner of your screen, then click language interpretation, and also finish up with clicking Spanish and mute original audio. Para interpretación en español, oprima donde dice más en la esquina inferior derecha o superior derecha de su pantalla. Luego oprima donde dice interpretación de idiomas. Luego oprima donde dice español y en silenciar audio original. Let me make sure that everyone is switched to whoever needs the interpretation, that is switch to interpretation. So I really want to give a warm welcome for everyone that not only is in our programs, but also is not in any of our programs. So for that, actually, if you don't know what Unidos Now is, our mission is to elevate the quality of life of the growing Hispanic and Latino community in the Manatee and Sarasota region through education, integration, and civic engagement. Now, our vision is to empower Latinos to achieve their American dream. So we're a social benefit organization that focuses on education to empower Latinos to achieve their American dream and to think about also post-secondary education, which is the main topic that we're going to talk on today. Now, just to give you a little glimpse of our programs as an organization, we have the Future Leaders Academy Scholars, which is the high school program, and also we have the Lead Now high school program. We do have, since our multi-generational approach, we do have a program in elementary school, which is the Future Leaders Academy for girls, and also we have one for middle schoolers, which is called the Future Leaders Academy Middle School. After high school, we also support our alumni, which is a college completion program. And then we also have a parent leadership program that we offer in our organization. So without further ado, I want to make sure to start on what we're going to cover today. So in the agenda today, we are going to cover what are the different types of colleges. Okay, we're going to look at a little go a little deep dive into what different type of colleges there are, and also what do you need to get into college. Okay, we're going to look at every single angle and every single component of how to the things that you need to apply to college and get into college. After that, we're going to cover or talk about how you can pay for college. Okay, this is really important. And also we're going to finish off with college for undocumented students, which is important information for anyone that is watching this webinar and is watching this community workshop, so that you can have that information for any other students or parents that have any questions. And then after that, we're going to have a Q&A, which we do have a Q&A, I believe, in an option, so you can submit your questions at any time. Just know that at the end of the workshop, when we finish talking about undocumented students, is where actually we're going to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so we're gonna have time in the end for questions as well. So let's start us off with what are the different types of colleges. And you can see that we have Manatee Technical College, we have SCS, which is State College of Florida, and then we also have this logo right here, which is actually the University of South Florida logo. So we have an option of technical schools and vocational schools, which is MTC or Manatee Technical College. We also have an option, you have an option to go to a two-year college or community college, which is State College of Florida. It's our local state community college. And also we have the option of going to four-year college, which is one of them is the University of South Florida, okay, which is a state school. Now, on the technical and trade school colleges, what you're looking to do or what you're looking to acquire, and one of those two options that we have, at least locally, is Suncoast Technical College and Manatee Technical College. You're looking for to fulfilling or completing certificates and licenses. So what does that mean? So it means that if you want to be plumber, electrician, you want to be a nurse assistant, or probably you want to have an HVAC, you want to be an HVAC technician. Those are certificates and licenses that you can actually, have the option of doing in a technical or trade school. Now, that's not the only things that you can do when it comes to the technical schools or the trade schools. We're also talking about, other topics and other areas that you can cover will be business and IT. You can do a certificate or a license in criminal justice. You can go into the health and public services field, and also you can do hospitality services or even industrial technology. So this will be a great option for someone that is looking to, let's say, for example, start their own company as a plumber or as an electrician or as a nurse assistant. This will be a great option for them. Now, community colleges. So community colleges, and the one that we have locally, again, is the State College of Florida. So for this college, it's usually determined to be a two-year college, right? And the reason for that is you can have an associate's degree from this college. So there's a couple of options that you can actually have in a community college. And this means that you can do actually an associate's in arts or associate's in science. And an associate's degree in arts will be more typical as it's called the transfer track. So what that means is that with an associate's in arts, you will have those two first years of, let's say, for example, classes, and then you can use that to transfer to a four-year college. And what you probably will cover in those 2 years are general core classes, and then you go into what we call the concentration classes, which is the other 2 years in that four-year institution. Now, there's always an option which is called the associate in science, which there are already careers, programs, and certificates that you can do in a two-year track, and it's called an associate in science. And a couple of examples for that will probably be dental hygiene, graphic design. It can be also a paralegal. So that's the main two options for example, a community college. Now, community college also have other programs. Can have programs that will take you, for example, through nursing, or have various options. For example, a state college can be a segue to save a little bit more money, because you're going to a community college to take the core classes and then going into a four-year institution, which will help you a lot when it comes financially as well. And now we're going into four-year universities, right? So these are usually the most popular, at least the state schools in the state of Florida. So you can see Florida State, the UFs, Florida Gulf Coast. You can see Florida Polytechnic, and also UCF, amongst others, right? So in these four-year colleges and universities, the main thing to know about them is, for example, it's 4 years. You can go into the school undecided, right? Meaning that you don't have to choose the major that you go in order to get into the school. And then you can declare your major later on, right? There's schools that will declare a major probably at the second year or after the second year. So it gives you the flexibility of if you're not sure completely of what to cover, or what to do in terms of career or major wise, then it gives you an option to test out with electives and with choosing classes in other areas or careers that you might have interest on, and actually defining that in the same process of actually going to school. Right, so it gives you a really good option when it comes to going in undecided and not declaring a major. As I said before, the first 2 years are probably core classes. So you're going to see if you enter, for example, class of 2023, those freshmen will enter and they're probably going to have the same classes with each other for the first couple of years, right? Until like they start actually having concentration classes for the other next 2 years, which is going to be more of like the type of major that you're taking at that time. Also, another thing on four-year colleges is that it's a segue to getting a master's degree or a PhD or a doctorate degree, right? So a master's degree will be your next step, and it will be around 2 more years after that 4-year span of getting your bachelor's, which is a 4-year degree. And then probably a doctorate degree will be in between 3 more years. And then that's probably the highest level that you can get in a university or in a college, will be a PhD on your topic, so or on your field. And then we go into, here we see, the public schools, but there's also private schools, right? So a lot of times I get the question on, what's the difference between the private and the public schools? Like, which ones should I be looking at? And the main thing I tell students and families is it's all about, knowing the difference between public and private school, which mainly is the public schools are funded by the government, right? Usually the tuition is lower for in-state students. So they focus more on low tuition for anyone that, for example, in this case, if we're taking Florida, for example, then for in-state or a resident in Florida will be, the tuition will be lower than someone's coming from out of state, right? And the main funding from those universities will be by the government. And the private schools are actually funded, have several types of funding options, right? So that means that their funding will come from endowments, research grants. It can also come from alumni contributions, and also the student tuition fees, right? So tuition is fairly higher on these institutions. But ironically, when you apply to these schools, depending on your academic profile and where you come from, they will be more generous with the aid. Okay, so you will be like, probably tuition will be higher per se, but they will be more generous regarding the financial aid. So you will see financial aid packages that will go, much larger than, for example, a financial package that you will get from an in-state school or state school, right? Now, in this case, I always get the question regarding, what should I do? What should I go for? Should I go for, a technical school and a technical career? Should I go with a 2-year college or a 4-year college? Should I do a master's degree or a doctorate degree? I always want to make sure that all the students and the parents know that we don't push for a particular school over others, right? We don't. We always make sure that the students dream big. That's our main goal as an organization. That's our motto, right? Like that's the thing that we always push for. But dreaming big is going to be just pretty much realizing your full potential. And the goal for the students, or at least the goal for us, will be finding the right fit school, right? That's always the main thing that we have in everything that we do, finding the best fit for that specific student. Doesn't mean that the best fit for a student can be the best fit for another student. So every student is going to be different depending on their academic profile, where they come from, what they actually want out of their high school or college experience in this case. So we always look at that and always try to educate them so they can have every opportunity the school offers, right? So we always try to put them in the best position they can be when it comes to information, so they can make informed decisions, and also know that, you know, whatever your neighbor is doing regarding college or post-secondary education path-wise is not going to be the same for you. And as long as you realize that, and you work hard, dream big, and try to fulfill your full potential when it comes to any post-secondary path, then that's the right choice for you to make. So now that we talked about, you know, the four-year colleges, the type of colleges, the difference between private and public, and what they offer, now, I'm going to leave it to my colleague Jameer, so he can speak a little bit about the requirements of the colleges and take it from there.
All right. All right. Thank you, Christian. It was a wonderful summary of the different types of schools and some of those other specifications. So now I'd love to talk about, now that you know all about the different kinds of schools, what do you actually need to get into these schools? And if you can type in the chat, I want to get an idea of what do you think you need to get into college? And when I say to get into college, I'm talking about what do you need in your application? So when you're reaching out to a college, what do you think they would like to know about you? Or what do you think you need to give to them? And if you're able to put that in the chat, and we'll see. Actually, I'm not sure if not sure if the chat is open. But in any case, I see some answers through the Q&A. I apologize, but so good grades and volunteer time, those are both true. Actually, I think it might only be open to the panelists, so apologize for that. So I'm gonna get into some of the stuff that you're gonna need to go into college. So the first thing that you're going to need is your high school diploma. Or if you are, let's say that you are not a high school student graduating from high school, and you have a general education degree, a GED. Either one, this is the first thing you're going to need. And along with this, you're also going to need your transcript or your grades. That's going to have like your grades for basically all of the classes you've taken. That's where you're going to have your GPA, which is your grade point average. It's going to have all the information about all the classes you took and everything you did in high school academically. So when this is something that every school, every type of school is going to ask you. But for example, technical schools and community colleges, this is most likely the only thing that you're going to need to apply to a technical school or a community college. Because they are, both of those types of schools are open enrollment. And what that means is if you meet the requirements, the things they need, which in their case, it's going to be your diploma. And in some rare cases, they might ask you to do a placement test to get an idea of what your like English and math levels are. Then that's all you need. And if you have that and they have the space, then you're in. That's how technical colleges and community colleges work. And that's what open enrollment means, that if you have the stuff they need, you're in. So when we're talking about four-year colleges and universities, their enrollment, their admissions process is a lot different, and not going to sugarcoat it, it's a lot more complicated and it requires a lot more effort. So the first thing you're going to need are the ACT and or SAT. Now, these are standardized tests, and basically almost all colleges, just to not say that every single college does, almost all colleges require you to have taken either one of these tests. And in fact, it's also a graduation requirement in the state of Florida. So more likely than not, you're going to be taking this regardless of if you're going to a four-year university or not. So the SAT and ACT are very slightly different. And in terms of which one you should take, we usually recommend that you try to get a chance to take both of them, because they are, even though they are the same level of difficulty, just to give you a brief idea, the ACT sort of leans a little more into math skills, while the SAT leans a little bit more into reading and English skills. But those are very tiny differences. They're both, I would say, equally challenging in terms of the content. So it's not like one of them is the easy way out. Now, you're able to take these tests multiple times, and you're also able to take both of them, both of the standardized tests. And also in a lot of cases, so these tests cost money. Usually they have a small fee around $30 to $50. But if you are a low-income student, your college counselor, your high school counselor will be able to give you a voucher for these tests to be able to take them for free. And you don't just get one voucher. Usually you're able to redeem maybe 3 or 4 vouchers, maybe even more. I'm not 100% sure on the amount. But if you take them multiple times, these tests are divided into multiple parts. And you are able to combine your test scores. So for example, let's say if you took the SAT one time and you did really good in math, but not so good in English, and you take it a second time and you do better in English, but worse at math, when you apply to a college, you can do what's called a super score, which is going to combine the best parts, your best score in each part, and make so that you're able to have the highest possible SAT or ACT test score. So even if, for example, you do slightly better or you do slightly worse, you can combine it and have the best possible score when you're submitting a college admission. Now, the next thing that you're going to need, the third part of this, is extracurriculars. Now, that includes a whole bunch of things: sports, clubs, maybe art, music, dance, volunteering, even in some cases work experience if you have it. These are all extracurricular activities. And the reason this is really important and why you need to firstly have extracurriculars and secondly include them when you apply is because this is one of the things that's going to set you apart from other candidates. When you're applying to a four-year college or university, it's not like a technical or community college where if you meet the requirements you're in, you're actually going to be essentially competing with other students to get a spot at that school because they have limited space, and there are lots of students that are applying as well. And let's say, for example, that you have a 3.5 GPA. When a college admissions person is looking at applications, how are they going to tell somebody apart if there are like 10 people with a 3.5 GPA, and out of those 10 people, they need to pick the 5 best? If they have the same scores, then, there's not that much else to go off of. So that's why extracurriculars are so important, because That's what's going to make you unique as a person and as a candidate for the college, so that you're not just a number, you're not just a test score. And that's really one of the big things that colleges are looking for, is who you are as a person. And extracurriculars are a really good way to show that you are involved in your community. It shows them what your interests are. And if, for example, you have leadership roles, or maybe if you're going on the sports route, you're really involved in like your school's basketball team or your soccer team, that's also something that they can take into account. So the last part that you're usually going to need for a college application is your personal essay. Now, basically every single college, every four-year college that you're going to apply to is going to ask you for an essay. Now, they're all going to most likely have a different prompt, or they're going to ask you to write about something, but the general purpose is going to be something that's going to give them a better idea of who you are, what you value, and what you believe in. So it's not like they're going to ask you to write about, I don't know, the history of Florida. They want to know about you. They want to know that you have good writing skills, but they also want to know, this is the best way to show a college who you are, what you're about, what you believe in, which are super important questions that a college admissions counselor is going to want answers to. So the personal essay is how you do that. And there's a lot of ways to go about it. But the most times what they're going to be asking you is a question sort of like, what is your story? Tell us about a time that you faced a challenge, or tell us about an accomplishment that you're proud of. Or, for example, tell us about an aspect of your identity that is really important to you. And so you're going to want to write your essay on whatever they ask you about and make it really personal, really show them who you are and what you believe in. Because at the end of the day, there's lots of students that are going to have, similar grades to you, or maybe even better grades than you, but they're not you. And that's what you need to show colleges, is that they need to want you specifically and not somebody else who has similar grades or maybe even better grades. And that's really what the power of the personal essay is showing the college who you are, showing the college who you are. And so on the topic of applying to colleges, I want to discuss a little bit more about what colleges you apply to and sort of how you choose what colleges you can apply to. So we recommend our students to put together a college application list. So we never recommend anybody to apply to just one college, because let's say you apply to college in, December, November. You might not hear back until March or April. And what are you going to do if they say no? By that point, it's most likely too late to get into another college, or you might have to go into maybe a community or technical college. But, you miss your shot. You won't be able to apply for the same college again, or apply to a different college for the semester that you wanted to go to. So in that case, you won't be able to go for the fall semester, and you might have to wait an entire semester to try again. That's why we encourage students to apply to more than one school, usually at least 3. There's really no limit to how many schools you can apply to, but applying to a college usually is going to cost you a small fee. And if you keep applying to a lot of schools, that's going to add up. And also, if you apply to schools that realistically don't have a chance to applying to, you're wasting both your time and your money. So there's a lot of factors into what college you should apply to. And really, this is really up to you, what you value. Maybe you value being in a college that's close to home. You want to stay together with family. Maybe the most important thing for you is academics. Maybe you really care about the location, like maybe you want to go to a college in the Rocky Mountains because that's your favorite place on earth and it's super beautiful and you want to wake up to that view every single day. Or maybe you really care about cost and that's your number one factor, going to the cheapest school possible, or not the cheapest, but the most affordable one for you. And so there's a lot of things, and a lot of times it's what's best for you. And obviously that's different for everybody. But what is going to be similar for most people is the selectiveness. And what this means is, how likely are you to get into this college? So there's a range of options from most selective, which are like stuff like Ivy Leagues and other really prestigious schools like Harvard. I'm sure everybody here has heard of Harvard, Stanford. There's a whole bunch more of those like Yale, MIT. I could go on and on. But those are colleges that are super duper prestigious and super, super selective. For example, Harvard only selects 4% out of everybody who applies, only 4% of people get accepted. That's how narrow that is. So 4%, not the best odds. So that's why we really recommend having a good balance. I'm not saying don't apply to Harvard because it's too hard. Obviously, you should go for it. That's what you want. But you should also think about being realistic and also having a plan B in case that doesn't work out. So there are selective schools, like for example, University of Florida and University of Central Florida, which have sort of a more 30 to 40% acceptance rate. And I don't know if I explained it properly, but acceptance rate means out of the applications that they get, how many they accept. So if they reviewed 1,000 applications and they accepted 500 students, that would be a 50% acceptance rate, which means a 50% shot that your application is going to be accepted. And then you get into less selective schools like New College of Florida or Florida Gulf Coast University, which I believe have sort of like a 70 or 80% chance. And then open enrollment, which I talked about earlier, which means if they have the space and you meet their requirements, which again are pretty simple, just your diploma, then you're in. And that's end of story. So that's basically 100% chance of getting in. So again, the way we usually determine how selective a school is and like what are the odds that you get into it are, you can usually just go by the acceptance rate, but it also depends on you and, for example, your academic prowess. So like maybe if you are someone with a really high GPA and you got a really good SAT score and you're really confident about your writing skills, your odds to get into a selective school are a lot higher than somebody that has a low GPA. So for example, if you're that kind of high achieving student, then maybe you have a better shot at some of the more selective colleges, and you can take a bigger risk with applying to more selective schools. So it's not just the acceptance rate, but also be honest with yourself about your academics and also your extracurriculars, and finally your writing skills when it comes to sharing your story. Because you could have the most amazing story, but if you can't transfer it into paper, into an essay, then that's the really important part. So with that out of the way, I'm gonna get to the big question, which is how can you pay for college? Which is really, really important. I'm not going to lie to you, college is expensive, especially in the US. And so what I'm going to go through are sort of like the steps you would take, and kind of following in order. I'm going to go in order of how you should go about it, because just to show you how you can cover your expenses, because not all of us have college money to pull out of our pockets, out of our savings. And there's a lot of opportunities to go to college for a very low price or even for free. We have students in some of our programs that have been able to go to good schools paying basically nothing. And if you can do that, it is work. It definitely is work, but it's 100% possible. The first step to that is the FAFSA. This is the free application for federal student aid. I would say that this is stop number one in terms of the financial aid train. This is the first station. So what is the FAFSA? This is a yearly federal financial aid application that gives US citizens and permanent residents who qualify financial aid. Now, I said US citizens and permanent residents because if you do not have either a social security number or an alien registration number, you are not going to be eligible for federal financial aid. Later on in this webinar, we're going to talk a bit more about how it works for undocumented students and how you can get financial aid, because it 100% still is possible. But I'm going to focus on the FAFSA for right now. This financial aid, you have to apply for it every year that you plan to go to college. So you're applying a year in advance. So for example, if you're a senior right now and you're going to college next year, then you should be applying for the FAFSA right now. And you have to renew it every year that you're going to be in college. And now this financial aid is based on you and your family's income. So this is a need-based financial aid, which is, it takes into account how much money you make, how much money your family makes, your assets and other stuff like that, to get an idea of how much money you need to pay to college. So the higher your income, the less money you are going to receive from the FAFSA and also from other types of need-based financial aid, which there is a lot of. The main financial aid offering that the FAFSA offers is called the Pell Grant. Right now, the maximum amount of money a year you can get for the Pell Grant is around $6,900 a year, if that is the highest level that you can receive. For example, but if you make a little more money, you might be receiving less than that. Or if you have a very high income, it's likely that you might not receive any money at all. Now, the reason you should fill out the FAFSA, besides the fact that it is free money that you do not have to pay for, and again, filling out the FAFSA is completely free. It's the first word, free application. If that's not enough of a good sell, you're going to need your FAFSA information for basically almost every other kind of financial aid that you're going to ask for. The FAFSA produces what is called, they make essentially a report that's called a student aid report that is basically going to spit out a magic number that colleges, scholarships, organizations, foundations, everybody is going to use to get a good idea of what your financial need is. So basically, if you didn't have your FAFSA, every scholarship that needs an idea of how much your financial need is going to ask you, for your taxes, for your W-2, your income, if you have savings. So without the FAFSA, you would have to be doing that a million times for your college, for every single thing that you look for. So with the FAFSA, that becomes a really simple process of just basically you give them your student aid report and that's it. So it really simplifies your life. And, a lot of places are not going to put the effort to, look at your financial need if you don't give them your student aid report. So it's kind of like the key that's going to open up all of these opportunities for you in the future. And again, your college is going to want your FAFSA. There's no going around that. So it's really important that you fill out the FAFSA as soon as possible. Normally it opens on October 1st of each year. That's changing this year. It's going to be a little later, probably around December. But what we always recommend because in Florida, the deadline for the FAFSA is pretty late, somewhere around May. However, your college, the college that you go to, is going to have its own FAFSA deadline. The scholarships that you're going to applying to will also have their own deadline. Bright Futures, which I will talk about in a bit, I believe, also has its own FAFSA deadline. So, and those are all different dates, which are sooner than Florida's FAFSA deadline in May. So really what you should do is fill this out as soon as possible once it opens, because the sooner you do this, the more options you're going to continue to have. Again, you know, it's like the key that's going to open the kingdom of financial aid for you. So once you fill out your FAFSA, where do you go from there? Your next stop for information should be your college's financial aid office. Now, you can do this before you get accepted into a college or after you get accepted into a college. Well, you should definitely do it after you get accepted so that you know what you're going to be paying. Now, the reason this is important, besides, you know, knowing how much money they can offer you, because they will put together a financial aid letter that's going to show all the money that they can give you, because it's not just going to be the FAFSA. Your college is most likely going to have their own scholarships, their own grants, and other things that they can offer to you. And that includes both free money and possibly loans that you'll have to pay back. So you should talk with your financial aid office of the colleges you're applying to, because, for example, let's say you're interested in two schools. I'm going to use USF and UCF as an example. Maybe the total cost of going to USF is, let's put a really optimistic example of $10,000. And then UCF is maybe $15,000. So if you're just looking at that, you're going to be like, well, duh, USF is a lot less money. I'm going to go there. But you're not getting the full picture. Maybe UCF has a scholarship that applies to you that's going to make that price a lot lower, maybe even significantly lower, which is why you need these financial aid offers so that you know what the actual cost is going to be. Because maybe UCF is actually the less expensive option in this imaginary situation, because maybe they have a, you know, Unidos Now referral scholarship where Unidos Now students get $10,000 a year. This is not true at all. This is just an example. So don't quote me on that. But that's just an idea of something that could happen. So don't just look at the sticker price or, like, you know, what the price is on the website, because it could be very different for you. The next option, and also I should specify, you can only access this through filling out your FAFSA, is the Federal Work Study Program. Now, how does this work? Work study is basically going to offer you the opportunity to work part-time. A lot of times it's going to be on campus at the school that you go to, but not always, so that you can earn additional money for your education. Now, you're probably going to ask yourself, how is this any different from if I just go right now and go apply to a fast food or a clothing store and get my own part-time job on my own? The big difference is, rather than if you go to work at a fast food, then that employer is the one that's paying your salary. If you get a work study job, the person who's paying your salary is the federal government. And so that's the main difference when it comes to work study, is that who is the one that's paying for it. And the other big difference is, most of the time, work study jobs, they are either give priority to work study, students that are eligible for work study, or are exclusively for students who are eligible for work study. So the odds of you getting this job are a lot higher than, for example, if you go to work somewhere random, because one, the college is going to have a preference because they're not paying for your salary. That's not something they have to worry about in their budget. So they really, really like picking work study students. And as someone who had a few jobs in college through the school, basically almost every opportunity, they give preference to work study students. So it will really give you an advantage if you're looking for part-time work. The next step I want to talk about are scholarships, and this is a really big topic. And I'm going to keep it brief because I could go on and on forever about this. Scholarships are money that is awarded to you and you don't have to pay back. So similar to a grant. However, for scholarships, there's an application process involved. Some of the scholarships you see on the screen, the ones on the left, are some of our local foundations. And we really recommend that when you look into applying to scholarships, you start here. Because to give an example, there are lots of like national scholarships, like for example, one of the super famous ones is the Coca-Cola scholarship, or like the Bill and Melinda Gates scholarship. Those are super huge national competitions that bring in tens of thousands of students. And again, similar to what I said about schools, it's not that it's impossible for you to win it, but if you go to our local scholarships, your odds are way stronger. And I will say that, some of these are group applications where they have lots of scholarships. Like, for example, like the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, I believe they have one application that automatically goes to 70 scholarships that they offer. So you did one application and you applied to 70 scholarships, basically. And there's a lot of other ones like that. And of course, there are regional scholarships, national scholarships. The scholarships on the right are specifically for undocumented students. So there are lots of scholarship opportunities for undocumented students as well, or students with other kinds of citizenship status. And again, there's no limit to how many scholarships you can apply for. If you want to apply to every single scholarship that's on this PowerPoint, good for you. If you have the time, again, it's an investment of time because these applications can require a lot. They can ask you for multiple essays. They can ask you for your academics. They can ask you for a letter of recommendation from a teacher or from somebody in your community. So it takes a lot of work and a lot of preparation, but it really pays off. If you think about it like this is a job, so, maybe you spend 2 hours working on a scholarship. If you get that scholarship and that's $1,000, then, that was 2 hours of work for $1,000. That's $500 an hour. I don't think that's a salary they're offering anywhere. So you should really put the time to work on your scholarships. And then last but not least, I want to mention loans briefly. This should really be your last option when it comes to paying for your education, and you should only use them if necessary. You should really exhaust all of your options regarding the last 4 things that I talked about. And, once you know that all the scholarships, everything you have is not going to be enough, that's when you should start to look at loans. There's a lot of categories of loans that are available. And really, for example, there are federal loans that are offered through the FAFSA, and that's going to be like your best bet because as federal loans, they will have the lowest interest rates. But there are also loans that are offered through your college and private loans. Again, we really recommend that this is a last resort, like no other option type of thing, because we really care about, putting our students through college with as little to no debt as possible. And, loans are, if you can avoid them, that's really huge, and it will really be a blessing for you down the line. So with all of that, I want to hand it off to Lucero, who is going to talk about how college looks like for undocumented students.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to answer the question,
can undocumented students go to college, or can DACA students go to college? And the answer is yes. And there are actually some institutions that will give you aid to go to college. And I just wanted to say that right away in case anybody is listening and is wondering if college is even an option for them. There are some things that are unique about the path of an undocumented TPS or DACA student. But some of what I will talk about is helpful for everybody. So don't think that you can't get something useful out of this, because there are ways that you can stand out, that undocumented students can stand out, that everybody can use as well. And we'll start by talking about how you choose a college, which is on the next slide. So when it comes to college in general, and if you are undocumented DACA, TPS, or if you have another unique non-citizen status, you'll need to start planning and researching early. And I recommend doing this as soon as you can. For the most part, you'll apply to college just like any other student. So the application process will be very similar. But one of the things that will be different is what school you apply to. There are a lot of options. So I'll walk you through two scenarios that you can have. You can either go to a public school, or you can go to a public in-state school or a private school. We'll talk about the pros and cons of both of them as a DACA or undocumented student. So if you plan to stay in-state here in Florida and attend a public university like FSU, USF, UF, or UCF, there are more. There's a few things that you need to know. So first is, like I mentioned, for the most part, you'll apply just like anybody else would. But what I would consider doing if you're considering a Florida public university is to find out what kind of support that school offers for DACA or undocumented students. A lot of the times they'll have somewhere on their website that will walk you through like their commitment to undocumented students, maybe some financial aid that they offer, or resources. So as someone who actually was DACA in college, I would have loved to do this so that I could make sure that the school I was going to would be supportive of students like me and offer resources to students like me. Okay, so still talking about Florida public universities here. If you're DACA or undocumented, you'll need to fill out a waiver to receive in-state tuition. I think we briefly talked about this. If you are going to attend a public Florida university, but you don't live in Florida, you're going to pay a ton more. And if you're DACA or undocumented, unless you fill out this waiver, the school is going to want to make you pay that crazy high amount. So make sure that you connect with whoever your contact is at this school so that you get that waiver signed and you're able to pay in-state tuition instead of like the 3-time extra amount that it is to pay out-of-state tuition. Okay, so moving on to the two images on the left, the one that says Middlebury College. Even though the initial ticket price of a public Florida school will be more affordable for the most part, you'll find that private schools, and I have the example of Middlebury College here, they're actually known to be very financially generous, and they can end up being a lot more affordable for undocumented or DACA students if you are accepted, because they will fulfill all of your financial need. So let's talk about how you can find schools that will make this happen for you, because it's not just Middlebury. I want to introduce you to two key phrases that you should look out for when you're looking for these schools. One of them is very straightforward, undocumented friendly / DACA friendly. And how you can go about finding these is just Googling undocumented friendly colleges or DACA friendly colleges. Normally there will be articles that will suggest schools that will do this or that are known to be undocumented friendly. So it'll bring up a bunch of articles from different websites recommending schools that have shown themselves to be undocumented friendly or DACA friendly. And this is a really good start. It usually means that the school is known to be very generous financially. And normally they're more empathetic. Maybe they understand the barriers that undocumented or DACA students face. And some of them might even have additional support. So some of them might actually also be seeking specifically undocumented or DACA students because they're that committed to helping that demographic. The second key phrase to look out for is need blind. This is not just for undocumented students, but just if you're someone that you know you'll need a lot of financial aid and you're looking for the most affordable option, this is a route that a lot of students that are undocumented specifically choose to take if they're looking for a private school. So like I mentioned, this is not specific to undocumented and DACA students, but it's very useful. Made blind basically means that the college does not consider your ability to pay them when they're deciding whether to accept you or not. So this means that with all the factors being the exact same, a very low income student would have the same chance of getting accepted into a school as a high income student. That's good. That means that the school isn't going to just take a student because they can pay them more and won't take you because they'll have to give you money to attend. So in a need blind school, they are very generous and they strive to meet your full need, which means you could get a full ride to this school, meaning you don't have to pay anything. That's an amazing option for an undocumented student because your financial aid will be covered. Speaking of financial aid still, each school will have its own way that they'll want you to find information about your finances. And I'll talk a little bit about like FAFSA and things like that in a little bit. But the way that I recommend you go about this is, again, the school's website. Every school should have a website page with information on undocumented or DACA students where they just outline like how they want you to provide your financial information, or they'll have a contact, like someone's email and their title. Reach out to them, have them as your point of contact. You might have something that's a bit different than a traditional student that is a citizen or resident. And it's good to have someone that you know you can count on to answer questions about applications or financial aid or documents that they might want from you. Okay, so now that we're done with choosing and applying colleges, we're going to talk about what you can do if you're undocumented to make yourself stand out in the next slide. So making yourself stand out in an application, a really of course, the goal here is to get admitted into a school, preferably one that will give you a lot of financial aid or make you stand out on like scholarship applications so that you can receive a lot of aid. We'll talk about which ones you can apply to in a bit. So there are several ways that you can do this. One thing that I would recommend actually for everybody is fly-in programs. So definitely don't underestimate the power of demonstrated interest. The school wants to know that you want to go there. So fly-in programs, basically colleges have programs where they pay for you to go visit them, stay in their dorms, sit in on classes, and meet current students. This shows them that you're interested. And these are most of the time open to DACA or undocumented students. But I know this might not be feasible for everyone. So this can also be achieved by emailing schools you're planning on applying to, or attending online information sessions, follow them on social media, make yourself seen by them. Another option, or not another option, but something else that you can consider is dual enrollment. So when you're a high schooler, you can enroll in your local community college, SEF, or technical school. In Sarasota, that's Suncoast Technical College, and Manatee, that's Manatee Technical College, to take classes there. This means you get a free college education while you are in, I think it's normally just 11th and 12th grade of high school. So why does this matter for a DACA or undocumented person? It's because it's free. So while you're in 11th and 12th grade, you can take college classes for free. You don't have to worry about like the application process, about not qualifying for federal aid. That is included because you're a student. This is a huge money saver since you may not need to take those classes when you actually go to college. And again, this isn't specific to DACA or undocumented students, but since a lot of the times we struggle to find aid, this is a good way to minimize how much you're even having to pay. Something else that is similar to dual enrollment in that it gives you credit are college level classes. And you can see some of the acronyms here on the screen: IB, AP, and ACE. These are all types of classes or a program that allow you to earn college credit as long as you pass the final exam. Of course, this means that these are harder classes. But this also saves you a lot of money in the long run. And these are actually available starting in 9th grade. So you can start saving money as a freshman. Both of these options, dual enrollment and taking college level classes, give you college credit, which is basically a way to take college classes for free while you are still in high school. So that when you start college, there are some classes you won't have to take. And in college, every single class you take costs money. So if you already took it, that means that you won't have to pay for it anymore. And then speaking of money, we'll talk about financial aid in the next slide. All right, so we're going to start with some negative information first, which is that if you're undocumented or DACA, you do not qualify for state or federal aid. So let's put this in the context of Florida. Here in Florida, you won't qualify for Bright Futures or FAFSA. And this also means that you're not eligible for some institutional aid, meaning aid from schools that come from Florida public universities like USF, UF, FSU, UCF. Okay, so I'm going to go back to FAFSA real quick. I know we mentioned this earlier because there's a little bit more that you need to know. If you're DACA or TPS, you can fill out FAFSA because you will have a social security number. The downside is that you will not receive any money when you fill it out. So why would you fill it out? The reason you would fill it out is because some scholarship applications will want your FAFSA so that they can see what your financial situation is like, basically. It gives them like a very standard look at your finances. If you're undocumented, you do not fill out FAFSA, you cannot fill it out. And what I would recommend doing is contacting the school's financial aid office to find out what you can provide instead. Sometimes they have you fill out financial aid like an international student, or they'll have like another form that they'll want you to fill out. Okay, and then we'll talk about how you can actually get aid in the next slide. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about scholarships that are specific to DACA or undocumented students, which you can see the logos of on the slide over here. The downside to these is that they are national scholarships, meaning anybody from the US is applying. Because it's specific to DACA or undocumented students, the group is a lot lower, or like the competition is smaller because it's just DACA or undocumented, but you're still competing with people from all over the United States. These are excellent because you know you qualify. You don't have to be a resident, you don't have to be a citizen, and they're generally super, super generous in the amount that they give you or the support that they give you. But there are also other options, and okay. Those other options are looking for scholarships from local foundations, which the logos were in the slides that were about financial aid in like the general financial aid section. Some are like Community Foundation of Sarasota, Manatee Community Foundation. Like they mentioned, those are good because they're local, there's not as much competition, and some of them do not specify requirements about citizenship. And this is something that I wish I would have known. It doesn't have to specifically say, if you're DACA or undocumented, you should apply. Sometimes they just won't say anything about citizenship. Take that as your invitation to apply anyways, it doesn't hurt. And with that said, another point I had here is you can apply to any scholarship that doesn't specify citizenship status. That doesn't mean you'll get it. It doesn't mean you'll qualify, but I think it's worth applying if you find one that you think you could be eligible for and it doesn't specify citizenship. Also quickly, QuestBridge, they do accept undocumented students, or they do match undocumented students. It's a way for you to get a full ride to a school that this program partners with. Super, super generous program, competitive, but again, it's a great opportunity to look into. And then finally, speaking about scholarships, we're going back to how to find scholarships within your university. So this goes for either public schools or private schools. I would recommend to look at their financial aid or diversity or multicultural department website. You might find scholarships on there that are specific to first-generation students, Latinx or Hispanic students, DACA students, women, etc. And you also might find that some of them don't have citizenship requirements. And I actually have found this in some of the public Florida schools. So even though you can't get aid from like the government funded side of things, they will often have like extra money set aside for like an undocumented scholarship or a scholarship for Hispanic students that doesn't have these citizenship requirements. So definitely look on the diversity and multicultural or financial aid department website. And then finally, local businesses or churches might have scholarships that you could be eligible for, because if they're smaller, they might not specify that you have to be a citizen. And that's it for DACA and undocumented students.
All right. Thank you, Lucero. Thank you so much for that information. This is all the information that we have for everyone in today's webinar or community workshop, College 101. And really want to thank everyone that's been here. Now we're going to open it up and we're going to check all the questions that you had in our Q&As. Before we do that, I really want to give a huge thanks to the Charles and Marjorie Barancik Foundation for making this possible. Without their support, which we couldn't be able to provide all this information and amazing knowledge that we have for all the community and all the students and families. So I think my colleague Jamir is going to check real quick. Let me actually stop sharing. And then we are going to check Jamir, if you can read maybe a couple questions, if we have any. I think there's a couple that, go ahead.
Yes, and if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A button and you'll be able to enter any of the questions you have. So the first one we have is, how do we go about giving colleges what you believe in? And I think I'll take that because that's part of what I was talking about. So what I mean when I said that is, so maybe let's say you're a person who cares about justice or leadership or diversity or any other value. So what I was saying in that question is, so you want to tell a story in your college essay that maybe highlights that. So for example, if you're someone who really cares about strong leadership, you can maybe talk about a story where you, what do you call it? Where there was a situation and you had to step up and, you did the right thing and were a strong leader for, say, maybe your community or some friends. So that's kind of what I meant when I was talking about showing colleges what you believe in, is using your story to highlight values that are important to you. That was from Oriana. So you're still here. I hope that answered your question.
And Jamir, let me see if I can maybe add a little bit to that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that Jamir said is right on point. So I'm just going to add also that colleges are looking for ways to get you involved in their community. So if you can showcase what you have done in high school, that means for them, you're going to do the same in their college or in their community. So if you get involved in let's say, for example, volunteer work, or you're really involved with the community when it comes to volunteering and maybe doing some tutoring or like going into clubs, or you're probably someone that likes to go and volunteer to clean the beach, or do community work around your community, then that will be something that they're looking for, right? And if you can put that as part of your brand, right, which is usually what we tell all of our students is, you're unique to yourself. So that means how you're going to project that to all the schools. Your uniqueness is going to be on how you sell yourself to the school and show what you believe in. So everything that Jamir said is exactly on point. Just wanted to add that as well.
All right, thank you, Christian. I have another question here, which is what colleges are good for architecture? Do you want to take that, Christian?
Yes. So there's a couple of schools, at least here in the state, that will have great architecture schools. But my biggest recommendation where you're looking for specific program, for example, is that you go and look also out of state, right? A lot of students want to stay in state. They love the state of Florida. They want to stay here. But you'll be surprised how many schools out of state will actually give you a pretty good financial aid package, will be extremely generous when it comes to your applications, and you get a great education there as well. There's actually schools that are higher ranked when it comes to academics and even architecture school outside of the state. So my biggest recommendation is if you're probably 9th, 10th, 11th grade, start researching for those schools to see what are their requirements, right? And what they require from you specifically when it comes to, there's going to be schools that will require 4 credits of math, but also require 4 credits of sciences, right? So make sure that you're always meeting those requirements when it comes to the schools that you're looking for, and talk to your either school counselor or college counselor to see how your transcript can reflect that. After that, you got to start looking at, what are you looking to do with architecture, right? And each school has information on where their students go after their school. So if you complete a bachelor's degree in architecture, whatever field you want to complete it, look at where they're landing their jobs in, or what type of internship and partnerships they have with companies that provide those opportunities to the students. A lot of times you will find that if you're looking for a specific type of architecture, it might be in other schools that will specialize in actually getting more opportunities for students, meaning internships or maybe potential first jobs, than other schools. So it depends on what you want to do in terms of, do you want to go to a prestigious high school when it comes to academics, or do you want to really look at what tools students are getting so that they can go after college and pursue a career? So I hope that answered your question. And I saw that you put design architecture. So yes, there's specific schools in the state, but also out of state, there's a lot more. So I will probably broaden that search for out of state as well, not only focus on in-state schools.
I wanted to add real quick, because I know, Oriana, you have plenty of time to figure this out, and we will work with you as you get into high school to start looking at schools that are aligned with what you're interested in.
All right, I have one more question and we still have some time. So if you really want to know something, please, put it in the Q&A. So the next question, and I love to share this with everybody because I know that there's probably plenty of people here, or you might know some people that are in this exact situation. And I was definitely in this situation when I was going to college. And that is, my son has no idea what he wants to do. Maybe go to community college and then discover what he really wants to study. So I think we all have answers about how to approach that. So Lucero or Christian, either you want to go first?
I mean, I can probably go first. Lourdes, it all depends on, for example, which grade is your son in. It depends on the timing, right? So if they're in 12th grade, then probably either they're probably about to graduate in a couple of months. So maybe that will be the best option. But if they're still in 11th grade or still probably younger than that, then they still have time. Now, the main thing to do is, or how to tackle the process, you have to be smart about it. So you have to look at first, what is your son's strength? What he likes to do, right? And start exploring on different kinds of majors, and start, asking your son, for example, what things do you like what things interest you, and start doing a deep research on what do you have to do in order to make that your profession or make that your career. A lot of times is defined by a specific major. Sometimes is defined on a specific school, right? Or a specific path. So no matter what the path is, you always encourage all the students to dream as big as possible, meaning, if you want to do whatever it is, if you want to go to a technical career school and you want to get a career on the technical field, then you shoot as high as possible, meaning you graduate from that, you start working, maybe open your own business on that field or on that career. So we always never discourage any students, doesn't matter the age or where they at in the process, to not shoot for their dreams and dream big. So in your case, what I would suggest is start talking to your son about how does he see himself in a couple of years from now, doing what, right? And what is his interest? And after you do that, then you can probably start looking at specific majors or majors that probably have that interest and where they offer them, right? And you combine that with your academic profile from your son, and you start looking at options to see what are the best options for him. Is it going out of state? Is it staying in state? Maybe to save more money, or going out of state if he has a high GPA, really well-rounded student, might be an option to go out of state as well. So is there, I don't know if any of you want to add anything to what I just said, but I was saying probably like getting more context on the situation will be probably a better idea to actually give more feedback. Is there any other questions? I think we answered every one of them.
Somebody had their hand up, and I don't know if they still do.
It looks like they still do. I don't know. I think we can unmute them possibly. Let me see. Carolina, I saw you had your hand up. You should be able to unmute yourself if you want to ask the question.
Maybe not.
Right.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. We did get another question in the Q&A, and what percentage of the college price will cover all the possible scholarships and economic cost, all from the schools? So I'm a bit confused by the question. If you want to type again and elaborate a bit more. Are you asking sort of like how much money you need to cover everything, like not just the cost of tuition, but like housing, books, meal plan if you need a meal plan? Because at least if you're asking about the how much money you need to go to college, that really depends on where you're going. I would say at least like the average cost of attendance for a Florida school, and also Florida public college, and also this is including things like housing, meal plan, transportation, averages to about $24,000 a year. So that includes like all like, living expenses, books. That's like the full price. Again, usually, and that's also not what your school might bill you, because for example, if you don't live on campus, they're not going to charge you for housing. You would do that on your own, but that's still a part of the cost of college. So that's still something you need to take into consideration.
And just to add a little bit to that, Jamir, also, so I think he was also asking about, what percentage will cover like the scholarships that he will get to either tuition or so it all adds up, right? So like you're adding everything that you're applying to and you're getting. So if you're getting multiple scholarships, depending on the amount that those scholarships are, it can be $1,000 a year, it can be $5,000 a year, it can probably be more. But you add that to whatever you owe from either tuition and any cost of attendance for that college. Now, if you're applying for FAFSA as well, and also for Bright Futures. In this case, that you're staying in Florida, then all those things add up to that tally, right? To that cost of attendance. So let's say for those two things, Bright Futures and maybe FAFSA, you'll get a total of like $12,000 or maybe $11,000. If your cost of attendance is still like, all the way to 20, then you got to figure out that amount for the rest of the $8,000 or $9,000. So the more scholarships that you apply to, the more that you get those scholarships granted, then that's how you start, putting down the amount. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending today's community workshop. Again, this is a workshop for all the community, not only including our wonderful participants from our programs, but also this is something that you can share with anyone else. So we are going to have more of these community workshops in the next couple of months. So be on the lookout for any promotions. The next one, I believe, is going to be in June, and there's just another one in December and November as well. Before I leave, I want to thank once again the Charles and Marjorie Barancik Foundation for making this possible. I want to thank my colleagues here, Lucero Guzman and Jamil Crespo. Also want to thank Carla Lopez for providing an amazing interpretation in Spanish, and also my other co-worker, Lisbeth Olkuvica, for being here as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending once again. Hope we see you in the next one, and have a great rest of your night.
Oh, before you leave, I also wanted to let you know that after you close out of this webinar, you will be redirected to the survey. So please make sure to fill that out. It's gonna help us, figure out how to make these workshops better and hear from your perspective. And if it doesn't pop up right after you go to the Zoom, you will get an email with the survey link as well. So
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.